QLED, and I must say, I am satisfied.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Dude, I'll tell you what. You go in, you want to get a massive discount on these TVs. Sometimes they have these open box deals where the TV's never been used. I'm telling you, I talked to the guy. The TV came from a place, it was a bar, right? I mean, it's sad, but this bar had just opened and bought all of these 65-inch QLED TVs. And then something happened. They had to close. So they returned all of the TVs. Never used.
So now they're selling them open box because what else are you going to do?
Right.
This is the month of the year that people are getting rid of inventory. You can say what you want about Black Friday deals and the culture around that one, but if you want a TV, I would say November's the month. No expert there. We were anatomy experts last week. Now we're TV buying experts. Buying guides, injury guides. We got everything here on the Matchup Show. What's up, guys?
Hell yeah, man. Look, I'm no expert on it, but I can certainly tell you that there are good spots. They're like, oh, it doesn't have the stand, right? And I go, okay, I mount my TVs anyway. All my TVs are mounted regardless. I'm like, don't care about that. Didn't have a remote. I went on and I found one for $20, the Samsung remote. Saved like $500 on a brand new QLED. We'll take it, man. You got it.
Oh, got a hunt. Chef's kiss. That's fantastic.
Yeah, the TV I had before that, it was just a Samsung smart TV, nothing crazy. Started crackling and then sounded like something blew up inside. So yeah, all right, we'll get a new one. Yeah, that was crazy. My father-in-law's over. He's like, the fuck was that?
I remember in the late 90s, we had I'm sure the computer inside was a little different, but we had a situation in our living room. We're watching TV. I think it's like Thanksgiving, and the TV just starts smoking. It didn't catch on fire, but it was a parents running into the living room situation and dad taking us immediately to Best Buy to get a new one situation.
Yeah, man, remember those old projectors? We had those, like the big 60-inch projector, but it was maybe 10,000 pounds. Do you remember those?
Oh, yes, I do.
Huge.
So heavy.
And they were state of the art at the time. Like if you had one, okay, cool, nice. Because they had the big screens, but they were massive. It was basically moving a piano.
Once that thing got in your basement, because let's be real, it was in a basement, it never left.
Never came out. Never coming out. Yeah. Seriously, what you would have to pay to get those removed is egregious.
Yeah, legit mover prices. Yeah.
Anyway, how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good. Crazy November, almost at Thanksgiving week. Really exciting schedule possibly for next week on the Matchup Show, but I do think we have a great slate this week. Excited to dig in. Happy to see everyone in chat. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you guys with us. Very, very excited too. Next week, we'll have 2 matchup strategy shows. One for Thanksgiving. We'll have one for the main slate. So we got you covered through and through. This is the Marathon Matchup Show. Grab your supplies, your MREs, whatever it may be. I mean, you got to get one of those camel backpacks that feeds water to you to get through this. We got you. But know one thing, when it's over, you will never have been more prepared for the week ahead of NFL football. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. And if you're listening after the fact, maybe you're listening in podcast, leave a rating, review, or subscribe to the podcast. I'm Dave Loughran. With me, as you knew, Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. I'm at Lafayette_D. We got 11 games, man, and not a ton of high scoring totals for week 11.
No, we don't have a ton of high totals. What is it? The highest right now at 49.5 on this main slate.
Yep.
We do have 4 teams right now with 24.5 implied points via Vegas or more. So we definitely have some options and some interesting ones. I know I was looking at the top stacks tool this morning. There's someone with that top rating score that I wasn't expecting. Now that might shift by the time we get to Sunday, but you're right. A relatively modest total score weekend as we go into week 11.
Chronic. No, I'm not a bargain hunter. As a matter of fact, my wife is always bitching that I'm not, as aware as I should be oftentimes. She's always like, you don't need this or this. So I said, all right, I'll go out and I'll get one of the better ones. I'll just make her relatively happy in the process. She She doesn't need to know the model. She just needs to know what's on the Best Buy card. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Sometimes you compromise. That's all.
Maybe this is a personal preference thing, but things you use every day, when you get really nice ones, you get to enjoy that really nice thing,
of course,
every single day. Let's be real. We're using our television more than once a day here. So I think, save your money where you can. I don't know if you need to totally skimp in the things that you use all the time.
You know what you should never skimp in? I'm going to tell you right now, all of you guys, don't do this. Some people go out and they buy store brand stuff. That's fine. Never, ever, ever skimp on these 3 products. 1, toilet paper. If you have, I have buddies that have, septic systems, right? And you have to use the real thin, like Scott toilet paper. Oh, gosh. It's a miserable experience, right? Granted, if you never want to have to fire one off at somebody else's house to begin with. Mm-hmm. But I remember during COVID, there was nothing out there but that horrible single ply Scott toilet paper. I still have like 5 things of it down in the basement that I tried to give it to my buddies with septics, never. Paper towels, tissues, those 3 items always get the best, man. You want to talk about luxury? You're not trying to wipe your ass with some single ply Scott. And Matt, people might say too much information. It's not. Anybody that's done it before knows it's not worth saving the couple of dollars. Am I wrong?
Not one bit.
Thank you.
No holes in your argument. Sorry, I had to do something.
Yeah. You can't do it. I'm just telling you can't. Yes, exactly. MJ Hayden said where you have to quadruple stack. Dude, half a roll's gone on a standard trip into the bathroom.
Yeah, I would just talk about below wipe-based expectations per wipe. It's just completely off on the single ply. Our single ply toilet paper ad deals in shambles right now, but you're just speaking the truth.
Yeah, you got to get the best toilet paper. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, let's talk a little football today. Happy to have you guys entertain this nonsense. But we've got the highest total game on the slate, Chicago and Atlanta. Not a huge surprise. Chicago, they've become MJ white-based expectations. They've become at this point, the best team for shootouts in the league. It's so nuts right now because their defense is god awful. They're atrocious. The offense is putting up points left and right. Now it's a little bit different because from a stacking standpoint, so much of the production is coming solely from Justin Fields and what he's producing with his legs. But Cole Kmet, they exhumed his body and brought him back to life, Matt.
Sure did.
They did. Did you know that the term blow smoke up your ass, like, oh, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass, actually originated from them trying to revive dead bodies by blowing smoke up their asses?
Hey, someone had to try that, right? You can't rule that out. You had to trial and error that at least one time. But the fact that it became a catchphrase, like I'm not trying to do this again, right, is a little concerning.
Let's just hope that cadaver did not use Scott before perishing. But it's Cole Kmet's alive. You could see a game from Mooney. Either way, 49.5 point total here. You can still get the Bears at 3.5. I do like that. I think even though they've lost all 3 of these games or they're scoring a lot of points, they're definitely putting up so many points from week to week. Interesting game. And I'm more curious to hear not where you are as much with Chicago. We can start with that, but with an Atlanta team that looks, real competitive early on. And now are the wheels falling off the Marcus Mariota train?
I mean, I don't know if they were ever fully on. If you're not utilizing Kyle Pitts and Drake London consistently, then something might be wrong. And not to take anything away from Cordero Patterson in the weeks that he's been available, but this offense just stutters, doesn't pass enough, and ultimately looks like a team that is just destined to lose by 5 or 6 points while, as you said, looking competitive for about 50 to 60% of the game. Now, the Bears' pass defense is not good. You mentioned that their defense is subpar. Their pass defense is 30th in Football Outsiders DVOA, 26th in yards allowed per pass attempt. And they got one of the weirdest, craziest fantasy football DFS storylines I can ever remember in Justin Fields. Justin Fields was unplayable 5 weeks ago.
Yep.
6 weeks ago. Unplayable. Looked like he might be destined for one of these players who, after two and a half seasons, was benched after being a top 3 overall pick in the NFL draft. And now he's one of the highest scoring fantasy quarterbacks we've ever seen. I can't make sense of that. You got to roll with it while it's happening. Our projections are ahead of salary-based expectations. 7,600 for the ceiling we know he has is not too much. And some of the more explosive players on the team are missing now. Khalil Herbert, who we've talked about on this show, one of the more efficient runners when he gets the ball, he's on IR. David Montgomery, we've got high projection for him, but I think that's only as a hedge play against Justin Fields. And as you mentioned in the beginning here, you don't really need anybody to come with him. Mooney has projections right at salary-based expectations, and Claypool is way, way behind. So the only people you're really considering in the receiving pool are Mooney, Kmet, and the rest are just large field Millie Maker picks after that.
I'll have you know that the Millie Maker winner this past week had naked Justin Fields.
There you go.
That means only Justin Fields with no other pass catchers. For those of you wondering why I'm not digressing back to the talk that we had earlier. But yeah, and he had a run back too, which is crazy. Which honestly, you think about it, maybe it's not crazy. Like Justin Fields and a run back, I can't. It's not the wildest thing in the world. At this point, it sounds it, but I guess it's not. Yesterday we had Montgomery's ownership like 9%, and I'm thinking this can't hold, but if it does, I absolutely love this. I will say though, and I mentioned this to Neil, think about how this backfield works when one of these guys is out. We've seen it before with Montgomery, and I think weeks 3 and 4 this year, Khalil Herbert was getting all of the work. What do you have, like 19 and 22 carries or something like that? You're not getting Blasingame out there taking the Khalil Herbert role this week. I think Khalil Herbert is David Montgomery with Herbert on the IR is very likely to see a lot of opportunities in this game. The only question now is whether you're trying to eat that near 20% ownership that we're getting. But you know what else? There are not a lot of, unless something opens up, there are not a lot of good discounted running backs at all this week.
I think I can find a way to avoid David Montgomery. Look, I get why this could work, and I get why our tools are gravitating there. And as I say, whenever I'm caveating a moment where I'm going to go against the tools, I think in general, you should probably just trust the tools over at Stokastic.com, winning people literally millions of dollars every year. David Montgomery, yes, projection well ahead of his 6,100 salary-based expectation. We're just fading the most likely outcome, and we're going with the field. It's a value option, a clear value option, completely get it. But if it's going to approach 15 to 20% ownership, and in single entry or 3 entry, it might be even more than that, like a quarter of lineups, for a player that may not even succeed, even though Atlanta's run defense is not good. I don't know. I think it's pretty tough to get there. Personally, that's just my personal take on it. He looks good from a math-based expectation. What can I say?
What do you think of the rest of this? Like, you broke it all down, but do you have priorities here? I want to factor ownership into this as well, of course, right? And our boom bust tool and all of that, which you're doing. Are there any spots where you say, hey, they're very popular, they're in a good spot, maybe I don't want to get there, or maybe I can play this differently?
So Kmet is a get up in salary to be contrarian option. Essentially, we've got him tight end 13, 4,100 is tight end 6. We're still talking about 4,100 on DraftKings. That is not too much if you want to have a single skinny stack here. And I'm not going to say Claypool at 4,800 is completely unplayable here, but really what you're saying is this high total game at 49.5, 50 points or so actually has a legitimate chance of shooting out, meaning I think it's going to go 7 points or more over its Vegas implied total. If that's the case, then you can bring 2 people along. But I do think people on the Atlanta side look more intriguing if you're going to add to that stack, right? We got Marcus Mariota, if I can switch over to the Falcons, way ahead of salary-based expectations. Even Drake London, even Kyle Pitts in the playable range for sure. Not only just a high total game, but the Chicago defense against the pass, just not good right now.
Question now is, does Mariota make it through this game?
Yeah, they don't trust him at all. The play calling has indicated on that team that they don't trust him at all. And they're trying to run the ball when they're down multiple scores. And that means Cordero Patterson, also viable at 6,200, the 12th highest salary running back as well. Even Tyler Algier is not completely out of the picture. I hate to say it. It's been a little bit more RBBC with Patterson back in the fold than I thought. The expected fantasy points only in the games that he's played over the last 6 weeks for Cordero Patterson, which I believe is 3, just 8.9 expected fantasy points per game. That's outside the top 20 running backs on the slate.
We had a question from Philip. Would you stack Fields and Montgomery? Atlanta run defense has been horrible. Yeah, they're not good. I still don't really want to do that. I still prefer not to do that because I suppose you could get some passing down work that helps, but you haven't seen a lot of that from Montgomery ever since they kind of redesign this offense. I don't think on an 11-game slate you have to. Yeah,
I agree with that entirely.
Anything else for this?
I guess we have Zacchaeus. Yeah, bless you. We got Zacchaeus and Damiere Byrd in the you can play them range. Again, this is attaching yourself to a positive game environment or a likely shootout here. It's not because those players look fantastic. We're talking inside 5 expected fantasy points per game. But it also means if they score a touchdown, we could be looking at them as solid value options, both 4K and under.
Sneezing is inopportune. When it happens at inopportune moments, it looks ridiculous. But it's a great feeling.
Oh, it's very therapeutic. Driving is the worst.
The worst. I had my daughter in the back seat the other day, and I'm on the highway, and I'm like, I gotta sneeze. Try and hold a sneeze in, you might, No,
you
might have
cannot.
An aneurysm. Can't do it. Yeah, I'm with you, dude. Just take the foot off the gas, brace for it. Mm-hmm. Because if I look at the sun, a lot of times I sneeze. Like I have light-induced sneeze disorder. Just made that up.
I was like, isn't that? First of all, people say look up at the light, and also you started the sentence with "I look up at the sun," and I'm like, is he okay?
Yeah,
and my cornea is hurt.
Apparently, 25% of the population, if they look at the sun or like something very bright, it helps them sneeze. I'm one of them. I'm one of the lucky few. Let's keep going here. That is true, though. Let's go to the next one on the list. So that first game, I think it was a very solid breakdown on your part there. The only other thing I want to ask, and don't worry, we're going to fly through some of these games. The only other thing I want to ask is, and you kind of got into it, but the backfield for Atlanta, like Cordero Patterson in week 1, you go, okay, sweet. And then first game that he was back. Second game, though, very limited opportunities. I do wonder, though, that was very short rest. He comes back on a Sunday. Yes. They play on a Thursday, and now they've had 11 days. So maybe that was a way of being like, let's limit him a little bit. He just got back. Maybe Patterson's workload is a lot bigger this week. I don't know, but it's just a thought.
Yeah, that's an important note. So I said it was 3 games when I was looking at that expected fantasy point sample. It was 2 games. So it's literally just those 2 games you're talking about. That Sunday, Thursday combo. Now we've got a 10-day rest for Cordero Patterson. And we were talking about a player who in week 3 had 18 opportunities for this team. And, 37 to 38% of the team's total opportunities in a game were not out of the question for Cordero Patterson. Now, Algier has certainly played okay in replacement of him to the point where I think he does get a touch share. But in week 10, Algier had 21% of the team's opportunities compared to 19% the week before. I do think we see that sink down to like a 12 to 15% range with Cordero Patterson making up more of the slack.
All right. Dallas and Minnesota. Very interesting. Dallas laying 1.5 here. I think they get the win this week. I do. 1.5 point road favorites against the Vikings. That's, you have to admit, that says a lot. Like whether Vegas, whether they're just trying to bait you into taking the Minnesota side, whatever it is. I still think, though, if Minnesota was a favorite in this game, I think a lot of money would be coming in on Dallas. So it makes sense, but at first look, it's kind of odd. I'm not convinced that Ezekiel Elliott plays this week. If he doesn't, obviously Tony Pollard, very strong play here. CeeDee Lamb, though, just the most obvious, and I think for very good reason. Absolute stud coming off a monster, probably the best game of his career. I don't know for sure, but it's got to be. It was a huge, huge game. 7,500. You're coming down a tier from these other top tier options, but you're still getting a guy that is the clear bona fide number one alpha receiver in his team and the second highest total of the slate. I totally understand why he's getting this ownership. He's very popular, but I do understand why he's getting as much ownership as he is.
Before we dig into the player eval on this one, I wonder if some of these books or some of these lines do have to actually Dallas Cowboy adjust these things because of the popularity of the team, even nationwide. Just something I'm throwing out there. It's not like they're America's team like it's the 1970s. I'm not completely living in the past here, but I do wonder if you, like you say, if this is a close matchup and you put the Vikings as 1-point favorites, then all of a sudden everybody and their mother is like, well, Dallas is kind of good this year. Minnesota got really lucky. And that leads me into my second point. What should the win probability models that are out there and being honed by the nerdiest data nerds out there, what should they think of a situation like Minnesota Buffalo and the end of that game? What should have been Buffalo's win probability? What should have been Minnesota's win probability after that goal line stand? It is really, really difficult to see the Vikings as a team that should have won that game, right? Like, oh,
yeah,
it's crazy that they ended up winning that game, even though I'd say Justin Jefferson's pretty good. But ultimately, it's just an insane turn of events where I don't think you would change a win probability model to suddenly think that the Vikings weren't just completely improbable winners against the Bills last week.
I think the Bills had like a 90+% win probability 3 different times in the fourth quarter or something. Like it switched and then came back to that and then above 90% again. And then it was 99%.
This sounds totally rational to me, but you see, maybe it's the social media sphere. Maybe it's a loud minority talking about how these are all bollocks, all of these win probability models, because we see Vikings, Buffalo.
Well, I've been saying that for a while, and I know you disagree with me. Remember?
Well, it sounds like nine times out of 10, that team wins. And that means 1 time out of 10, something weird happens. And it did.
Well, that would have been 99 out of 100, though.
You said it. Oh, I'm sorry. You said 90.
They were 99% at one point. I think they were 97% at another point. I don't know. Look, it's fun to look at that stuff, and I do understand it, but it's just such an odd sport. It's such an odd sport. Like with basketball, you go, all right, they're up 20 with 2 minutes to go. In football, you could be up a touchdown with a minute to go and the other team has no timeouts, and all it takes is one crazy play with one score. So again, I'm not a statistician. I'm not the guy to talk about this stuff, but there are a lot of people that would look at it because it goes from 99% to 0% or 99.
That's how it goes. Yeah.
In one play. It's crazy. Wait till we get to that Buffalo game. They can get up to 6 feet of snow over the next couple of days. So I'm serious.
Yeah, I know. I saw the forecast this morning. It's absolutely absurd. All right. To the task at hand. This Cowboys team is definitely in a great spot. Minnesota is 8-1, and the bottom line is we don't think their defense nor their offense is really a typical 8-1 caliber team. Not taking anything away from them. Also, the rest of their division is just trash. And if Tennessee takes it to Green Bay, we could be talking about a clinching situation way earlier than anybody wants to talk about clinching with the Minnesota Vikings, because the rest of that division, I can't say enough bad things. But I think that Dak is in a good spot, even though he kind of fell off. He's still 6th in expected fantasy points since he came back from injury. CeeDee Lamb, as you mentioned, a tier down. He's still wide receiver 5 in salary. That 7,500 is really, really interesting. The ownership is the annoying part. Right now, our current ownership projections have him at 26%, a quarter of lineups expected to have CeeDee Lamb. That's really the maximum I'm comfortable really ever rostering a top tier wide receiver, just because of the variability of the situation. I don't want to make any hard and fast rules, but that's really hard to go to in large field tournaments for me with that many people going there. So Michael Gallup becomes more interesting. Certainly Tony Pollard if Zeke doesn't play. And honestly, Pollard if Zeke does play. is an interesting option for me. I know we saw him back on the field, not 100%, not efficient when he is on the field. I don't know. Pollard just is the better player right now. I can't believe they might actually go back to Zeke as the starter.
Well, we know why they would.
Jerry Jones.
Right. Yeah, that's it at this point.
When the boss says to do something, you listen. Yep. So ultimately, it's just a situation. Logic may not prevail. What do they call it? The law of rational coaching doesn't always prevail. Yeah,
they could amputate Zeke's foot, and Jerry's in there like, give him a week. He's our guy. He's our guy. Have you seen the payroll? It's true though.
This team limps through Zeke.
Would you play Pollard and CeeDee Lamb together without Dak?
I love skinny stacking the second highest or third highest total game, because if it becomes that highest total game, or it is the one that shoots out 7 points or more beyond its implied total, any chance you get to capture a bunch of the scoring upside, go for it. So I think 2-player stacks with just Cowboys are fine, but we've got some pretty decent options on the Minnesota side. So if you are skinny stacking, I'm probably going to prefer doing a Dallas, Minnesota skinny stack, but no problem doing Pollard and Lamb. Excuse me. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, Gallup. I think Gallup, Schultz. Really, all of these guys are perfectly fine in a spot like this. I like everybody here, but CeeDee Lamb and Pollard, assuming that Zeke is out, for me at least, are the two huge ones. On the other side, the only question here isn't whether or not you think that Minnesota can score points. Is the question is how easy is it going to be, or how hard is it going to be to prioritize these guys? Because you have Jefferson, who's very expensive, most expensive receiver on the slate. Then you have Dalvin Cook, who, let's be honest here, Dalvin Cook's, he's having a nice season, but at the same time, in O'Connell's offense, he's not getting massive workload on the ground. Now, it's nice to see that his pass catching involvement is solid. The reason I bring this up, though, is if you're playing Dalvin Cook, that means you're likely, almost certainly, because there's not a ton of value on this site, fading a lot of these other guys at the top. So how do you prioritize a guy like Dalvin Cook at this position?
Cook is a tournament option and probably not in my small field player pool. If I'm playing single entry or 3 entry, I'm probably keeping him out. I think if you want to argue and say, I want to attach a high volume running back to the second highest total game on the slate, there's nothing wrong with that logic. And Cook broke free for a big TD run last week. In expected fantasy points, he's still RB4, which pretty much justifies his $8K third highest running back salary on the slate. And in terms of efficiency, over the last 6 weeks, he's at 3.5 fantasy points over expected per game. That's 6th best in the NFL right now. I don't know. Dalvin Cook is just still a really good player against the Dallas defense that is closer to league average. They're up to 6th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position specifically, but overall, they're closer to average. And it's not an I'm scared of them situation. Justin Jefferson's pretty good. I think he's pretty good at the wide receiver position. Made a couple nice catches. Nothing really notable last week in those final moments or anything.
Best catch I've seen probably since Beckham.
The fact that we're debating it just tells you everything we need to know about how absolutely insane that last catch was, and the catch at the goal line to lead to that eventual goal line stop and then crazy scenario afterwards. I'm fine getting there. We don't have Cooper Kupp anymore for the time being. Justin Jefferson just proved himself that he's just remember Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson? We've talked about that duo many times on this show. Kirk Cousins can become a chuck it up to JJ quarterback.
He should be.
And I think he should be. Exactly. Get Thielen involved in the red zone like you should. He's still 12th on the slate in expected fantasy points, making him certainly playable. And look, Hawkinson is going to be under 8% owned. He's tough to get to because he's 5,300, but he's heavily involved on this team. He's up to tight end 3 in expected fantasy points. Looking at the Minnesota side of things, he's going to be utilized a lot.
I love the usage we've seen from him.
It's cool.
Monster target. What's he have? 19 targets in 2 games with Minnesota. Kirk Cousins loves having a tight end that he can rely on. There's no doubt about that. It's a big difference there. All right, let's talk about Detroit and the New York Giants. Wouldn't be surprised if Detroit came in and won this game outright. It's not that it wouldn't be that shocking. I mean, listen, they're 3-point road dogs. Vegas is saying these are pretty evenly matched teams, right?
For sure. And again, the Giants, you look at the record, you think they're a juggernaut squad in adjusted fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. They're slightly below average in adjusted fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. You know, I'm on Ross St. Brown. They're playing him this week. They're below average. They're almost outside. They're almost in the bottom 12 in that stat. I'm looking at a team that has had good coaching, some good outcomes in one-score games, but that also means there's been some randomness and likely a little luck involved. Not saying they're a bad squad, not taking anything away from them, but I get why you're going here. Jared Goff's 5,400 against a team that is, in my opinion, at or below average defensively. It's pretty good, especially when you got playmakers like Swift and Amon-Ra.
Swift is unplayable right now. You would agree, right?
Well, at least he's a playmaker and available for you. At his salary, he's really, really tough. But he makes the offense better by being on the field.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not. Listen, I would much rather have him on the field if I'm trying to get points from other guys on this team. There's no doubt about that. I'm just saying in terms of volume, it's not there right now. And this is intentional. This isn't lack of skill. This is them being like, all right, we're actually playing competitive football for the first time in a long time, at least over the last 2 weeks on that 2-week win streak. Dan Campbell getting his first road win in his head coaching career. But Swift, I mean, the truth is at that price point, right? Forget about ownership here. I would rather have Cordell Patterson at 4% because at least I know there's the potential that he gets, I don't know, the lion's share of carries, like you said, coming off 10 days rest opposed to 3 days rest in that second game back off the IR. I would rather play Montgomery, even though he's higher owned. There's clear 20+ touch upside there. I would rather play Jamal Williams on the same team.
I get it.
Because do you know how many games Jamal Williams has multiple touchdowns this year?
I'm going to guess 4.
Yeah, 4.
It seems like
or
Jamal.
No, sorry. Wait, hold on. Wait. I think four different games he has multiple touchdowns. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we've talked about this exact point. You can say what you want about him being a quote emotional leader from what we learned in Hard Knocks. That is one of those moments where I actually think seeing something on TV is a signal. They do give it to him at the goal line when DeAndre Swift has been used between the 20s.
They did last year too. They did it last year too with Dan Campbell.
I still think Swift has the talent and he has the talent profile of someone who shouldn't shock you when he comes out of nowhere, in quotes, to score 40 points. But can we predict that? And can we go for that and say this is a must play at 6,100, the 13th highest salary running back? No, we can't. And we're bearing the lead here when we're talking about running backs, right? Because we got Saquon on the other side here, who continues to just absolutely eat in terms of opportunity. The Giants are 10th in yards per carry because of him. A little bit of Daniel Jones as a team. And the Giants are the Detroit Lions are in the bottom 5 in Football Outsiders rush DVOA and yards allowed per carry.
Yeah. I mean, he's by far the best play in this game. There's no denying that for sure. A lot more expensive, but yes, Saquon Barkley getting 21% ownership right now, highest owned running back on the slate. It makes sense against Detroit. 45-point total is not all that bad either. Detroit could score some points. I think DJ Shark should be back for this one. So that opens it up a little bit, helps him in the passing game. For me, if I'm just looking at this game as a whole, it's Saquon Barkley. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then aside, I don't love St. Brown as much as I don't love St. Brown as much as I did last week, just given, the price is fine. There's something about him this week that I don't Love. Like the Giants run defense, number one, is clearly the weakest aspect of this defense. St. Brown, though, can put up big games without, he's still, look, he's the best pass catching option for Detroit. I just don't know if he's a guy I'm going to be over the field on. We'll see. And then on the other side, yeah, Saquon Barkley. But besides that, are we really trying to say, all right, maybe we can get a Darius Slayton game or Wan'Dale Robinson if he plays, or like the pass catchers here, say what you want. New York would love to not have to throw the football like they did last week when Daniel Jones only chucked it 17 times.
They would love to play that way. And you know, again, I don't want to take away from the fact that this coaching staff and this front office has come in and turned a bunch of the same players who were not good for multiple seasons and turned them into a winning team within 10 weeks. That's incredibly impressive in a very tough league. But I also think that there's a lot to say about this team that means that at any moment we could see them sort of slide a little bit closer towards league average, which a lot of these metrics are pointing to. Like Darius Slayton's touchdown, perfect example. It was a nice catch. He makes a nice move, but then he breaks outside and suddenly people fall down and it's a huge long gain of a touchdown. That's the type of little bits of randomness and, dare I say, luck that the Giants seem to be getting right now that can sometimes bounce the other way in a fickle game like football. Amon-Ra St. Brown has a projection ahead of salary-based expectations, seeing that right as you are seeing that, Laffy. On the other side, Saquon and everybody else is the way I'm looking at it. I will take a couple shots on Wan'Dale Robinson, 4,600, the wide receiver 33. We got a projection inside the top 30 for him. And Slayton is not unplayable either. The Detroit defense 27th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. Even Jones, I mean, 5,700 for a quarterback that runs, that's interesting to me. His expected fantasy points, 16 to 18, right in that mid-tier QB1 range on this slate. He's been scoring above expectation per game over the last 6 weeks. And I'll say it again, Detroit's defense, we're not scared of them at all.
We shouldn't be. No, I mean, we saw last week between Chicago and Detroit. Can't believe Chicago came back and won that game. Just a disaster. Yeah. For me, at least. Anyway, Tyler, move that sidebar for us, please. You want to talk Philly and Indy?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Right,
sorry about your Eagles, man. You knew it was going to happen, but
yeah. Listen, I think people think I'm a lot more banged up of that than I was. It sucked and it was an ugly game, but I'm not expecting to go 17-0. I thought they'd win, but divisional game, whatever. It happens. Still 8-1. Now, if they come out and they lose to Indy, that would be an issue. That would be an issue.
I do think this Goddard injury is not good. Like, you still got playmakers, but it's significant at a position where you didn't really have a ton of depth at that position. We'll see what they do with Jack Stoll and players like that, but I think they're actually going to spread it out. You might see a little bit change in the offensive philosophy.
Goddard was having a very nice season too.
Mm-hmm.
The type of guy that you could just dump it off to him basically and let him run for 20 yards. Seriously.
Oh, you can do, and with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith on the field, kind of keeping defenses honest, it left the dump off pass over the middle very open. I mean, even the play he got hurt on, it was essentially that, right? He had a huge gain. He was trying to make a move upfield.
Yep.
Just unfortunate.
It is 7-point favorite, 6.5 in some spots. The biggest thing for me in this game is if Jeff Saturday found ways to, I'm not even joking. If Jeff Saturday found some ways to improve this offensive line a little bit, right? Because they are the highest paid offensive line in the league. It's not like these aren't players that were, it's not Houston. It's right. Like, this is an offensive line that should be good. They looked good last week. This team ran for over 200 yards. Jonathan Taylor had a very strong outing. We saw against the Eagles on Monday Night Football, the Washington Commanders, 49 rush attempts. 49 rush attempts. They didn't have a run longer than 11 yards either, for what it's worth. It was just dominate time of possession. Philly's play calling, I think, will get fixed up. That was horrible in the first half. You can't just go 3 and out, give the ball to Miles. But if that happens and this game is competitive, Jordan Davis is still on the IR for the Eagles. He is their big behemoth run stopper in the middle of the field. You could see back-to-back really nice games for Jonathan Taylor. I'm just throwing it out there. You really could. I liked Taylor last week a lot for very similar reasons. I'll have some Taylor this week as well, even as 6.5, 7-point dogs.
I agree. And again, we don't know what's going on inside the building. And I went on that rant about Jeff Saturday, and it would be the most fun timeline if he did succeed, and one game sample size. And if there was one area that you could say, okay, Jeff Saturday with very little NFL or top level coaching experience would come in and be able to shift things positively, you'd probably say it was the offensive line. So
exactly,
in that regard, that's a really good thing to see. And, starting Matt Ryan also indicates to me that maybe it was possibly a tiff between Ryan and Reich that got him benched. A little conspiracy bro theory for you. I don't know anything, but Matt Ryan looked competent once again. This team was leading the league in completions per game with Ryan at the helm. Not to say that usually means you're in a comeback mode a lot. If the offensive line improves, that also improves things ultimately for Matt Ryan, who is 5,200, the 18th highest salary quarterback. He's playable once again. And Jonathan Taylor at 7,800, he looks a little expensive for his projection below salary-based expectation, but just barely. And this is going to, our projections very importantly use historical data. So it'll take the fact that Taylor has been relatively inefficient on his touches for most of this season into account, in a way that maybe as we're sort of, putting our own spin on things, our wrinkle, we could see ways he gets right back to that number one running back ceiling. I think Pittman's playable. I think Paris Campbell's playable. I think in large field tournaments, Alec Pierce is playable. This Eagles pass defense is way better. And I talked about this with Neil Orfield on the Live Before Lock show right before Washington, Philadelphia. The key to Washington's game was controlling that game on the ground. And that is exactly what they did.
Big time.
But it isn't the only way a player succeeds in fantasy football. We could have just little tiny chunk plays, 8-yard gains, 9-yard gains, but someone else gets into the end zone because Ryan passes plenty. Pittman even at wide receiver 13, 6,100. I think he's going to go a little overlooked. We say he's going to have a 10% ownership projection. I don't think that's going to be much higher than that. I think it might actually be below that by the time we hit Sunday.
Wasn't it kind of fun, though, to see Twitter and all the talking heads melt down after that?
That was why I said it was going to be the most fun, because they were kind of rooting for it to lose a little bit. Jim Irsay, his online screeds, was kind of right about that part, but it's fun when a team unexpectedly wins, especially one that made an unorthodox decision. What else can we say?
Was it Bill Cowher? Was he the one that went on this tirade about it, I think, on national television?
No, I don't know. I didn't see that.
Oh, you got to look up Bill Cowher talking about Jeff Saturday. Yeah. Egregious, insulting. It's a embarrassment to the league. Yes, it's funny stuff. But I'm with you here. Now,
it was Cowher, okay.
I think it was, right? Yeah. Let me ask you this then. Are you playing Matt Ryan? Because I still think that may be a bridge too far.
Look, you're playing, what you're signing up for with Matt Ryan. You need him to pass, and pass some more. What if Philadelphia sees this as a we need to get right offensively game, and they come out and they torch you with A.J. Brown, or Devonta Smith has multiple scores, or Miles Sanders gets going early? These are all distinct possibilities here, meaning Matt Ryan in comeback mode, which is basically the mode he's been in all season, has to pass his arm off. He's going to be 3% owned. If he throws for 350 yards and only 3% of the field has him, now you're talking about somebody who might be interesting. Obviously, we're looking at the run game first, but Ryan is playable for me this week for sure.
And as Chad is pointing out, yes, elite speed from Matt Ryan.
Oh, yeah. Didn't he have like a 38-yard run?
Monster run, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, put that in the models.
It was hilarious. Yeah, you got Parker Reese coming in, I think is his name. Parks Reese.
Frazier.
Parks Frazier, that's it. Parks. I was mixing up that no-name tight end from the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah, Parks Frazier coming in. God, what a wild experience that's been. For Philly, though, I got to tell you, I one thing that I think we could definitely see this week is AJ Brown see his ownership dip considerably because of that price. That gives me some interest in him. We have him at 7% right now. The fact that he isn't cheap makes it, I mean, he's had some big games. He gets targeted downfield. He has that my ball mentality where 50-50 balls, he can catch them, no question. Mm-hmm. I want to get a little bit above the field on AJ Brown this week because the last time AJ Brown had a big game, he was low owned and he was expensive along with a lot of other good receivers. And he had 3 touchdowns in the first half. I'm not saying that it plays out that way. What I'm saying is he does have that ceiling potential where those games are kind of sporadic. And when he does it, people aren't going to be on him. So 7% is pretty low on Brown this week.
I think that's really interesting. Absolutely can go there. The Colts, say what you will about them, 7th best in the NFL in adjusted fantasy points allowed, 7th hardest team to pass against, at least the wide receiver position this season. That's
surprising.
That is a little surprising. Look, I think everyone, as an exercise, every single week they're playing the main slate, should be making a list of pay up to be contrarian options, or I've seen other people say this player could score 30 points and here's the rationale. Make a pool of these players. And even if their projection compared to salary-based expectation is slightly negative, like it is with AJ Brown compared to his 8K DraftKings salary, he can still score 30 points. We've literally seen it this year. We know the path to it. And even though the stats say something else as a most likely outcome, you should not be surprised as a DFS player that it occurred when it occurred. So Brown absolutely fits that bill. To an extent, Miles Sanders also fits that bill. It's not my favorite this week, but he's RB15 in expected fantasy points, RB11 in our projections. 6,900 is a little expensive, but the Colts, in terms of defense, have been much worse against the run. Losing Shaq Leonard for the season is really bad just for the defense in general. So I'm not even trusting the metrics to really hold up for Indy rest of the season. There is some shootout potential here. What is this game? 43.5 point total.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if 50 points ends up getting scored here.
I wouldn't either. And yeah, look, Indy's been, they have a good defense, no doubt. But hey, that big game that he had a few weeks ago was in like, all of them were in double coverage and Minka Fitzpatrick was draped all over him too. So he's not exactly a bad defender in that secondary.
No, I don't think so.
All right. Top plays from this game.
So it's AJ. It's Jalen Hurts. I mean, we barely talked about Jalen Hurts.
We know.
He's good. It's Jonathan Taylor and it's Michael Pittman. Tons of large field options for you, though. Paris Campbell, Alec Pierce, Miles Sanders, Devonta Smith, all in the player pool when you're talking about large field options. Yeah. Even Quez Watkins maybe gets more run with maybe more 3 wide receiver sets. You can go to Jack Stoll at 2.5K if you want to. But again, it's just attaching yourself to some shootout potential. I'm not thinking Stoll takes over Goddard's role in the offense.
Right. But if you need the cheap option at tight end and you're paying up elsewhere, he's minimum salary. So there's that. Cleveland and Buffalo. Let's get into the weeds with this one. We're into the snow. Into the snow. Yeah. Before we do though, first hit that thumbs up. If you're maybe listening after the fact, you forgot, or you're here and you got life going on, that's okay. Just takes a single second. Appreciate you guys for that. And check out PrizePicks because Matt, over at PrizePicks, not only do you have a sick format, especially in non-legal betting states where you can go in, you can build lineups with player props, 10x your money when you hit 5 of 5, or unlike traditional parlays, still get 2 extra money if you hit 4 of 5, get money back on 3 of 5, sustain a bankroll, build a bankroll, play as many different sports in the same lineup as you want. Not only do you get that, not only do you get $100 first match deposit bonus when you use the link in the description or the one in the comments or in the chat, but also, what if I told you that on top of a great site with solid payouts, with all these different sports, $100 first match deposit bonus, you also get a free $120 value month including Discord, all the tools, every sport, of Stokastic Plus Platinum when you use that link. I mean, what would you say?
That's the clincher. That's the clincher. I think that is just insane value. When you talk about the fact that we have tools that can help you win over on PrizePicks that you get for free for signing up, then they match the deposit bonus. Then the fact that the interface is great. The innovation is great. I cannot believe the number of things I can bet on in the NFL. Pass yards, rush yards, receiving yards, 50-plus yard punts, passing, rushing, receiving TDs totals, tackles plus assisted tackles, targets, interceptions, sacks, not to mention the other sports, the multi-sport entries. Just fantastic stuff over there.
It's awesome, man. Use the link. Description, chat. $100 first match deposit bonus. Also, it's a good site. It's not like you're going over there just to get this. You're actually going to play there. And free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, all of that right there. All right, let's get into this. Now, I think people are misunderstanding why they're talking about moving this game. They're not talking about moving this game necessarily because it's going to be dumping a foot of snow down at game time, at kickoff. They're talking about it because from Thursday through Saturday night, they could get up to 6 feet of snow. Now, look, I don't work for Buffalo or the suburbs of Buffalo, Orchard Park, right? I get that. I'm not a township worker, although I have friends who are, and I know that shit is not all that organized sometimes. If they really do get that much snow, like 3 to 6 feet of snow, the problem is the Browns getting there, people getting to the stadium, being able to clean all of that up. It's not just, is there too much snow to play a football game? We've seen the Eagles and Detroit Lions do it back 9 years ago, where it dumped a foot of snow in an hour and a half. It was out of nowhere, but they still played. People were already there. The question is, do you even get to the game? Are the conditions to get there going to be okay? Now, let me throw another wrinkle into this, Matt. Here's another variable I'm sure you've thought of. The Buffalo Bills play on Thanksgiving. So if you're going to move this game, you can't move it to a Monday or a Tuesday like we've seen in the past. Again, Eagles, Minnesota got moved to a Tuesday when the roof collapsed. Mm-hmm. You can't. So I see some people saying it could go to Detroit. If it is, it would have to be on a Sunday. You can't give a team a game with 2 days off.
No, you literally cannot. The Players Association would riot.
There's no way.
It's not going to happen. You would be forced to postpone the Thanksgiving game, and I think the NFL would rather, punt themselves in the face.
Detroit's interesting, though, because Buffalo's playing the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving.
That does make some logistical sense.
Stay there.
Gosh, I am so happy I don't have to make these decisions. This sounds so difficult. But here's what we do have to talk about. The fact that this total is starting to sink. I'm seeing 42.5, 42. I'm still seeing the Bills with a respectable 25-point implied total. That indicates to me that, one, the Vegas books think Josh Allen looked good enough, and two, the conditions aren't enough to scare them away from saying the Bills aren't going to get close to their typical scoring level in this matchup.
If the wind is, real bad and the conditions are still rough, but they get this game in Buffalo, I think it benefits the Cleveland Browns. Like, if you're talking from ability to cover, the Browns would love nothing more than to just have a slug it out battle on the ground. And if we're being fair, we've seen the Bills struggle in those type of conditions. Last year, was it 2 years ago, against the New England
Patriots? Yep.
Right.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Bad, blustery conditions, really windy. Patriots ran it down their throat with Damian Harris. He got hurt. Ramondre Stevenson came in and did the same thing. Meanwhile, McDermott and Allen, they just decided we're going to keep trying to throw the ball because they don't actually have the run game to get it done. So this is one where we can talk as much as we want about it right now, but until we know where it's played, until we know what the conditions look like, it's kind of a futile conversation.
So last week we had Chubb and Hunt take about 41 and 42% of the team's total opportunities, targets, and rushes. They would love to get that number to 58, 59% if the conditions called for it. But one thing I am looking at is the run game on the other side here. If the conditions are tough, if they're playing in Buffalo, the Browns' run defense is down to dead last in Football Outsiders rush DVOA. They're 27th in yards allowed per carry. Could this be a Devin Singletary game? Not saying we're going to go away from the Buffalo passing game. Stephon Diggs, certainly playable. Josh Allen, certainly playable. They're expensive. But the one that's really intriguing, at 5,800, Devin Singletary, a projection well ahead of salary-based expectations. And we're not that high on James Cook or any of the other running backs in Buffalo. This Cleveland defense and the fact that Buffalo has a high implied total, I think I like Singletary as a value play this week. Only 12% expected ownership.
I don't think I can do it.
Really?
I get it. I really get it. But we're talking about a guy last week who scored 2 touchdowns and still only had 16 fantasy points. And I'm not just using this as a one-game sample. I'm saying I don't really know where the ceiling game comes from with Devin Singletary. Like how do we get in this offense? Where does a Singletary ceiling game come from? Maybe the Miami game, he had 11 targets, but that's a clear outlier across the whole season. From a workload perspective on the ground, like, yeah, he's still the lead back, but this is not a team that, fundamentally built on running the football.
No,
I don't know. I suppose it's possible. I do. And
look, is for me, this is about attaching myself to such a large proportion of a great offense's overall touches.
I get it.
From week 3 to week 10, Singletary has averaged 26.6% of the team's overall opportunity. What we will say is the quality of that opportunity has been so-so. One of my favorite quality of opportunity metrics I mention all the time, expected fantasy points, because it's going to talk about where those happen, when those happen, how many air yards, how many targets. Josh Allen is number 1 among all quarterbacks in expected fantasy points per game. Devin Singletary down at running back 13 on this slate. The high value opportunities go to Josh Allen, even in the running game.
Man, if this game moves to a dome, Josh Allen and company, oof.
Dude, it's on.
I mean, just fire it up, really. Fire it up. Let's see, though. If this weather's still rough, I think I'm going to have I think Nick Chubb to me will be very appealing, because it's not just the fact that he's going to get more work based on game planning, but there's a higher likelihood that the Browns would just have the ball more and wouldn't be down by multiple scores quite as soon as they would probably if the conditions are okay. So
he's so good. Our tools hate him right now. Well, we got to point that out. Our tools hate his salary at 8,200. A player like Nick Chubb is never 100% unplayable. He's just too talented. 5.9 fantasy points above expectation per game over the last 6 weeks. But Amari is where our tools are leading people a little bit more. Actually, he's looking only okay. It's that Buffalo defense and that low implied total right now. If the venue moves, though, I agree. You can put these players back on the list, or at least higher up.
It only matters how Singletary does based on salary expectations. Not really. I mean, well, I'm saying, like, you're still foregoing other running backs to get there. So
I think it's worth pointing out possible value running backs, of which Singletary is one.
I was just reading the comment in chat. Yeah.
Right. I see U2K was talking about it, but it also, it doesn't mean that. It also means that what players get to their ceiling performance as well. Because if a superstar, even at a high salary, gets to 35 points and no one else gets to 25, then those 10 extra points really, really mattered, even if Singletary hit 3x.
Yeah, it's an opportunity cost thing. We'll see. Maybe Singletary has himself a game. I hope he doesn't.
Yeah.
But if he does, you heard it here first, Matt Savoca. And all the tools over at Stokastic as well. Want to talk about Vegas and Denver? Or do you have anything for the passing game for Cleveland?
I put Amari Cooper into the you can play him category and DPJ in the large field. Of course you can play Diggs. Gabe Davis is tougher. Dawson Knox looks like a decent value.
Yep. Okay. Charles, wasn't Singletary one of the best value plays in week 10? I mean, yeah, but I'm just saying he only got the 16 fantasy points and he scored twice.
And the whole point is, in order to win a tournament with a value play, when he gets to 16 fantasy points, great job. You still don't win any money in DFS unless you hit the ceiling players. That's what I'm really saying. It's like, unless we have to talk about players in two different buckets a little bit. Are they a value option? Are they going to perform better than salary-based expectation? Or are they a ceiling option? They could break the slate. They get that fire emoji next to their name.
Yep. And by the way, yes, MJ, he said last week you wanted Jeff Wilson over the expensive guys to fit the studs in. Yeah, but Wilson had 25. Like Wilson had a big game at 5,500. Anyway, look, we're just laying things out. You guys make the decisions on your own. That's all right. We don't need to spend that much time on this. No, you don't always. I know I'm not gonna. Let's talk about Las Vegas. Las Vegas and Denver. Now, the Las Vegas Raiders, the wheels have fallen off. Plain and simple, wheels have fallen off.
Derek Carr's crying.
It's bad. It's bad. And then with Denver, their offense stinks. Fortunately, they have a good defense that can keep them competitive. My favorite play from this game, and yes, I will be going here. I like me some Cortland Sutton quite a bit. I'm not projecting Jerry Jeudy to play this week. So I still think, as bad as Denver's been, that Cortland Sutton and Greg Dulcich at their respective price points are pretty. And yes, look, Bruno, Denver is fantasy death on both sides of the ball. But if you take Jeudy off the floor or off the field, sorry, there's only so many players you can go to. So, and Vegas is just such a disaster right now. So yeah, listen, again, you guys make your own calls here. I will have some Sutton and I will have some Greg Dulcich. Well,
the rest of the offensive situation just kind of makes you want to throw up, is really what we have to say of the situation around Cortland Sutton. Melvin Gordon, Latavius Murray, Chase Edmonds, and a horrible 3-man RBBC for a team that doesn't score. Russell Wilson looks like a shell of himself. -3 fantasy points below expectation per game over the last 6 weeks. And so you almost wonder, can Wilson and this offense even exploit a defense who is 32nd, dead last in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position? I'm not so sure. The defensive metrics of Las Vegas indicate that if there is a consolidation of whatever small fantasy production we can get from Denver to Sutton and Wilson, it can be a fine play. It's just low probability, way more low probability than we want to admit. It just happens to be better than this 3-person RBBC or Kendall Hinton, somebody else in this receiving core. Dulcich is, he needs 11 fantasy points, basically 2 catches and a touchdown to be a value play. As we were talking about previously in the previous conversation, 11 fantasy points on its own from a 3,800 player is good, but we're going to need to find some star players. I don't know if we're going to get it in this game. Yeah. Maybe DeMonte. Maybe. Gosh, I don't know.
We'll see. Yeah. But 11 at tight end at 30, whatever 100 or whatever he's at is better than, 11 at running back at 5,800.
100%. A 200-point score is what wins you tournaments, or even higher in some weeks.
Yeah, so, not anymore. Now it's like 250.
Right. So 11 is a great start to 200. We don't need to go into this whole thing, but
no, I'm just saying, like, he's cheap. You don't need a blow up game from him.
Yes,
but yeah, look, they have basically a middle of the road implied total this week. It's 22. It's 22. It's right. It's in the middle of the road. I'm not excited about him. I don't have interest in stacking Russell Wilson with his pass catchers because I haven't seen enough. But bits and pieces, tight end position is a volatile one, $3,800 Dulcich. Jeudy goes down last week early in the game. Cortland Sutton has 11 targets. So you're still talking double-digit targets there. Am I excited about it? No, but I think they're both very much in play. I want nothing to do with this backfield. I don't think anyone should at this point. It's a guessing game, and they're ineffective anyway. Like you said, though, Devontae Adams, but then Josh Jacobs is very high owned this week still.
Right, and Denver, Denver might just be fantasy football death, right? Because their defense is awesome. The defense, I saw a tweet, the defense should sue the offense because they have a championship level defense right now. 4th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position, 3rd in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position, 2nd in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. Not bad. Not bad. Their offense is atrocious.
It is. John said, why would I not just go Higbee with Cup out? Yeah, I like Higbee too, but you're not just playing one tight end. I mean, maybe you are, maybe you're playing one lineup, but not just playing one tight end. Plus, let's not ignore the fact that Rams offense is dog shit right now. I mean, they were bad with Cooper Kupp. They can't pass block. They can't run block. I like Higbee, but I'm not sure he's all that much safer. So.
This is the hill I'll die on in terms of NFL analysis. Yes, a quarterback is the most important offensive position, but a wide receiver 1 and a really good wide receiver 1 at that is good enough to tank an offense when off the field and unavailable. This offense in Los Angeles may have just hit that threshold of unplayable. I'm sorry.
Could be bad. Could be real bad. I still like Higbee just because he's cheap and tight end sucks. But yeah, this could be very ugly. Any other thoughts on Vegas and Denver?
This may be a stay away game for me. Even though there are some players with projections ahead of salary-based expectations, this game environment screams even 41.5 is being kind to the total. This could fall off the rails for both squads at the same time.
You know, it's so crazy that you look at Denver and their games this year are averaging 31 points. Denver's not averaging 31 points. Their games are averaging 31 points. On the season, they are, and this is one spot that I've just continued to smash each week is Denver unders game totals. They're 1-8 to the under this year.
And you know what's crazy about this slate? You talked about it right up top, Laffy. There are 5 games with implied totals lower than this one.
Yep.
There are some.
Yeah, right. That's it.
I got to go dumpster diving here in a minute for these final 5 games.
I'll give you a silver lining of those of you looking at this game and thinking it might be okay. The only game that has gone over for the Denver Broncos all season long, and mind you, most of them have cruised under. I mean, I'm not like most of them have gone way under. The only game that went over, week 4 at Las Vegas, 55 total points. I don't know. Crazy stuff. But I still like the under in this game. All right, let's keep it going here. Carolina and Baltimore. 13-point dogs on the road in Baltimore. I think you probably get Andrews back. I don't know, limited participant on Wednesday. Gus Edwards was limited as well. Baltimore last game, they had a bye last week, but the game prior to that, Lamar Jackson completed passes to 11 different pass catchers. Nobody had more than 2 receptions on the day. Kenyon Drake was the star with 24 rushing attempts to score a big game. Let's be very clear, though. On the Carolina side, Baker Mayfield starting, not sure who it would have been. It's pretty ugly.
Yes, it is. We need to mention that while this game total is low, this matchup is unique because Baltimore at 27 implied points represents 66% of the total in terms of their own implied total. So while this game total isn't very intriguing, I have to say that Baltimore on its own looks very, very interesting. I do think that Lamar Jackson at 8,400, not too expensive. I do think that you can go to these receiving options, especially if Andrews is back. I'll be getting to him at 6,800 in his first game back. After that, though, I think it's kind of players from the other side that possibly come with you because you know who they are at this point. DJ Moore looks okay in our tools right now. Donta Foreman looks okay in our tools right now. And while I'm talking about very, very large field tournaments, not single entry or anything like that, no one's going to touch Baker Mayfield because everyone wants to play Lamar if they want to get access to this game. If you have the guts to go there and then play maybe an Andrews and a DJ Moore, a 3-player stack, and it does hit, I don't know, it could help you along the way here. Then you could play some chalk options at running back if you want this week.
What do you think about Baltimore on the other side? It's been a while since Lamar's had a big game, but he can always break one off for a massive performance.
So exactly. That's the way I see it. He's still 5th in expected fantasy points per game over the last 6 weeks. The quality of his opportunity isn't changing. Minus 2.5 fantasy points below expectation indicates to me he's either suddenly gotten bad or he's getting unlucky. I'm probably going with the latter here. If you want to make a different decision for yourself, you can do so. It hurts that he doesn't have playmakers like Bateman for the rest of the season, but I do think getting Andrews back is the boost I need, and it looks like the books are expecting Andrews back too. So this high total, Jackson being the clear top option, and the ownership being kind of low right now. We're seeing under 8% expected ownership at the moment. I think that's pretty intriguing.
I just don't know what to do with the rest of this team right now.
Could it be nothing?
Yeah. Mark Andrews is awesome. He's expensive. It's going to be very interesting to see what Mark Andrews lineups look like, because if you're paying 6,800 at tight end, you're not really finding value elsewhere. So what do those lineups look like this week if you're playing Lamar and Mark Andrews?
You're probably going way off the wall, right? Because as you said, we don't have any clear value plays at all right now at the running back position. Do we see players take a chance on, I don't know, Singletary or Kareem Hunt or players who are in situations where teams are going to have to utilize the run a lot, but they don't look fantastic on paper? We have seen these like tier 3 running backs emerge this year. That's more of a general commentary on the running back position as a whole right now, but that's a tough question to answer.
It's real tough. And you've got no Rashad Bateman. You can't trust Duvernay. You don't know if the ball gets spread. And then I don't know. I think we move on to Cincy and Pittsburgh.
I think we just play Lamar. And if we get beat by one of these tertiary options, we say, all right, it's hard to see that coming. Ultimately, this team utilizes a lot of options, and I'd rather just get the player who's utilized every single week and can break a slate in Lamar Jackson.
No doubt. Hey, for those of you guys that don't have PrizePicks available to you and you're like just bashing your head against the wall going, I wanted the free month of Stokastic plus Platinum. I wanted the $100 deposit bonus. Why do good things never happen to me? It's probably because you're a scoundrel and you live a life of, what's the word, Matt? A life of
degeneracy.
Degeneracy. There's another word that's better than that, and I can never remember it. I don't know. I don't know. Degeneracy works. I'm kidding though. The reason is because if PrizePicks isn't available to you, it's probably BetMGM, because you are likely in a legal betting state if PrizePicks isn't there. And yeah, debauchery would be good. Debauchery would be good. Yeah, either way. If you can't get in the PrizePicks, or you haven't signed up there, it's not available to you. I looked this up. So there's 42 of the 50 states where either MGM or PrizePicks is available. If it's not PrizePicks, it's probably MGM, which means that you're getting, when you got to use the link, otherwise we can't find you. Tyler, throw that in chat. It's in the description as well for those of you guys watching after the fact. 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum and up to $1,000 risk-free bet. The best part about this, though, click that link, follow the steps. It's insanely easy. You can't mess this up. All it has to be is $10. You take $10, you put it on any game, any bet you want once you sign up using that link. And that turns into 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum. It's a $240 value. If you got a little bit of extra money to play with as well, and you go, all right, well, I'm going to get these 2 free months, but I want to take advantage of the risk-free bet that these maniacs are also offering. Well, if you do $100 first bet and it loses, you're getting that $100 back in free bets, all the way up to $1,000. Even the 10, if you lose, you're getting that back in a free bet. Awesome opportunity. It's going to be down to 1 month soon. I'm guessing in the next week or so. Take advantage of it. 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum, up to $1,000 risk-free bet. Use the link in the description or in the chat. Take advantage of it if BetMGM is available in your state. All right. Talk to me about this Cincinnati team. 4-point favorites against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh looking a little better in that game. I mean, look, New Orleans has been terrible, but
yeah.
At the same time, I'm so fascinated by a guy like T. Higgins this week for a couple of reasons. I'll break them down for you, and then I want to get your take on both sides of the field because Najee Harris dealing with that knee thing too. But on one hand, you got Jamar Chase has been out for 2 games now. They had a bye week, so 2 games. The first game, they're flat, one-dimensional, gets smoked by Cleveland. Game is never at any point competitive. Second game, and of course, T. Higgins was fine because he had a garbage time touchdown, but for the most part, it was ugly. Second game, they don't need him because it was all Joe Mixon in that game. Just game for the ages for Joe Mixon. But at the same time, T. Higgins still had respectable, not winning anything, but 13 and 13.9 fantasy point games. Jamar Chase is still out. What happens if the Steelers run defense, who's good, and TJ Watt is back? What happens if they bottle up Mixon like the guy's been bottled up all season long before that Carolina game? What happens if they need to throw? I'm not looking at 2 pedestrian games from T. Higgins without Jamar Chase and being like, yeah, maybe he's not as good as we thought. That's all I'm saying.
That's an interesting narrative. I don't hate it, especially because in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position, Steelers have been getting it done, and that's mostly without Watt in the picture. He's obviously back for this game. They're 7th best against the running back position specifically. I definitely think Burrow and Higgins as a skinny stack is somewhere I'm going to go. Tyler Boyd is a little expensive, but in the you can play him category for sure. And the same thing with Hayden Hurst. Honestly, both tight ends look like solid value plays here. Possible slate breakers on the other side, it's just Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, who we have projections right in line with salary-based expectations. But I'm also wondering if because of that overtime loss in week 1 to the same Steelers team, we see Cincinnati, despite not having Jamar Chase, try to come out and pass the roof off here and try to break down this team that they probably think they should have crushed in week 1. And the defense will do everything to stop that, obviously. But I think Burrow, Higgins, Boyd, and even Mixon to an extent, though he's not my favorite, look like quality options here. I'm only doing Deontay Johnson and Claypool, with my favorite value play honestly being Freiermuth if I'm attaching a second player to this game.
Okay, fair enough.
No Najee, no Jalen Warren.
No, I can't. Najee's cheap, but if that knee is actually an issue too, Warren is a guy that I think they're trusting a little bit more recently. Wouldn't be shocked to see him get some additional work.
Did I say Claypool? I meant Johnson and Pickens. Sorry about that. Johnson and Pickens.
Claypool?
Yeah. I know Claypool is a bear, everyone.
Yes,
thank you.
Yes. Yeah. How could you forget? They traded him for their own 2nd round pick.
Yeah.
Brian C said, you will live life as an ass clown. What movie is this from, Matt? Ass Clown.
Oh, I know this. I don't know. Sorry.
They're in the parking lot, throws him up against the car, starts dry humping him. I would call it assault.
I think so. I don't know.
Billy Bob Thornton. Does Billy Bob Thornton ring a bell?
Is it Bad Santa?
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. I got it. You love Bad Santa.
Oh, it's one of the greatest movies out there, man. It really is. My daughter's going to be almost 2 around Christmas, and I'll sit her down and we'll enjoy Bad Santa together.
That's a great moment once you get there.
Yeah, we won't do that, but she'll be watching Christmas Story soon enough. That's a classic. You know how to piss people off? Tell them that Christmas Vacation is not as good as everybody thinks it is.
Oh, my fiance's family, the family I'm marrying into, that is their movie du jour.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There you go. My brother-in-law, sister-in-law, they love it. It's always playing. It's all right.
I think it's cute.
Not the best.
It's like that. I don't know. That comedy is just different now. I don't know. Loughran and Savoca, comedy experts. You know, we got to the gritty realism of comedy of today. That, you know.
What's your favorite Christmas movie?
Favorite Christmas movie? I'm gonna be a dork here. It's a Wonderful Life. Watch that with my dad every year.
Okay.
That's got the best memories. Honestly, the original and the Carrey Grinch are up there though, man. Jim Carrey's Grinch is
everyone else saying Die Hard. Yeah, the whole debate of whether it's a Christmas. For me, Christmas Story, I grew up on it, right? Because it plays for 24 straight hours. I will always, always love that movie. Bad Santa, like from an adult standpoint, is the greatest. There's no better like story arc when it comes to, hear me out. This guy, he's just vulgar, he's horrible. The end of that movie will make you want to cry, man. When he comes up with the elephant stained in blood, Thurman Merman. I'm telling you, man, it's actually a heartwarming movie if you appreciate it for what it is. I'm telling you right now.
I believe you. I mean, this is your TED Talk. If someone was like, hey, you need to do a TED Talk right now, it can't be on the thing like that's your main job. You can't do it on sports, can't do it on DFS. You're like, all right, I will convince you that Bad Santa is the best Christmas movie for 10 minutes. I could do that. You could do that.
Is there, you know more about this than me. I'm more of like I know what good movies are, but I don't know the verbiage, right? I don't know the vernacular. Is it like character arc story, like where Billy Bob Thornton's character over time, it takes off over time, becomes a guy you're like, he went from horrible, just terrible to I love this guy.
That's exactly what you would call it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Also, someone mentioned this in chat. It doesn't get talked about enough, maybe because it's newer. Elf is an amazing movie. Right? That's a phenomenal movie.
Elf is just a great movie. Like it almost has transcended the genre. Yes, it's about Christmas. Someone put on Elf in the middle of the summer. I'd be like, why did you do this? And then watch the whole thing.
Yeah. Great movie. Great movie. All right. Yeah. Jingle All the Way is another good. That's a good one. That's Ben Ross's favorite movie. He watches it like 50 times a year. I'm not kidding.
I don't know what to say.
He loves that movie. Loves that movie. All right. Let's talk. The problem is they don't make movies the way they used to. And I'm not being an old head. Yeah. I'm not being like the old curmudgeon, but they don't make good comedy anymore. They don't make them like they used to, Matt. And I mean it.
Well, actually, we should probably talk football eventually, but I was walking the dog with my fiance and we were talking about the same thing because people want to watch comedy at home. People don't really want to go to the movies for comedy anymore. So big budget comedies in the way that they tried to make before all the time are few and far between.
Let's be honest though. It's mostly because half the shit you used to be able to say, you can't say anymore in movies for comedies.
Oh, it's difficult to sometimes toe the line to not tick off any one group or person.
You could never.
I still think it's possible. I still think it's doable.
You couldn't make Old School.
Couldn't make The Office.
What?
You couldn't make The Office.
Couldn't. No way. Like Comedy Central still plays that because Comedy Central has nothing originally good anymore. But right, but they still. But you're right. You could. There's no way you make The Office these days. No way. It's a shame. We need to rebel. We need to tell them we want good comedy. There's good stand-up still though. Stand-up is coming back heavy, and that makes me happy. All right, Washington and Houston. Don't worry, we won't spend a whole lot of time on these remaining games.
Why not?
They're not good. What do you make of Washington here? I think we'd both agree that if they had one clear-cut running back in the backfield, it'd be a smash spot at their prices. But is it Gibson? Is it Robinson? And they're not going to run 49 times again. Like McLaurin's coming off a nice game, but let's not forget Heineke still had 7 fantasy points last week. You know what I mean? It's still, he did a great job. Take nothing away from him. He did what they needed him to do, but this didn't become like an overnight success for this offense.
No. Look, this team likes playing for Taylor Heineke way more than they like playing for Carson Wentz. And that means a lot when the locker room has been won over. But that doesn't mean from a fantasy perspective, it means a lot. And as you mentioned, this running back position is now a full RBBC, even with just 2 really active players. Together, they have 19 expected fantasy points per game. Neither of them are above 10.5 over the last 6 weeks. And right at expectation in terms of efficiency, Gibson a little bit more efficient than Robinson. Because of both of them existing, it's hard to trust any one of them, even against a Houston team that's 29th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position. So I'm kind of going to Terry McLaurin. Once again, 5,900 is way cheaper than I thought he would be after a nice game. We got a projection ahead of salary-based expectation. a defense in Houston that is below average against the pass. And you don't really need anybody with him. I think a Pierce McLaurin skinny stack in this game, if you wanted to go down to the bottom of the barrel in this game, isn't a bad way to play it. Curtis Samuel is a large field option for me as well. Probably out on Logan Thomas and Jahan Dotson. That's probably a step too far. So it's really just McLaurin, Samuel, and if you got a read on this running back backfield better than I do, take a chance on one. It's really tough right now.
I agree. I don't even have anything else to add there, really. Shark Killer, who says I want to go to the movies? I would love to go to a good movie, but my wife doesn't like going to the theater. She hates it. She would go with me. I just know it's not worth it.
So I will stump for the movies for a minute. The movies are really fun when you pick your battles right now because it's not cheap. And when you do it up and you do it right and you get those Dolby seats or whatever they're called, the ones where like they kind of rumble and you can recline and you like really do it up. I've had a lot of fun. We're not doing it all the time, but especially for these big epic movies that are out all the time.
Sounds like fun to me.
It's a lot of fun. Or scary movies, if you're into that.
I haven't been to a movie since The Revenant. And I was dying to go see that movie. But then Disney told all theaters with IMAXs that if you don't play the Star Wars movie in IMAX for, I think it was like 2 straight months, they're pulling it from their theaters. So The Revenant would have been an awesome IMAX movie. Couldn't watch it in IMAX, which sucked.
I did see that one in IMAX. Sorry to rub that in.
Saw The Revenant?
I saw it in a huge theater. Maybe I didn't see it in IMAX.
I didn't think they were playing it in IMAX, honestly.
Maybe that's the technicality I didn't realize.
Yeah, I don't know. I would like to go to the movie though. Anyway, I one thing too. I want you guys in chat and to tell me the last good comedy you have seen. One, so I can watch, and I mean last good comedy that's new, like the last good comedy was made, so I can watch it. Or so I can prove my point that they just don't exist anymore. But please, I would love to hear a couple good comedies out there.
I mean, I've got one that's active right now that's like my far and away favorite is What We Do in the Shadows. If you're watching that, that's a good one.
Okay. Maybe I'll check it out.
Do you know the premise of it?
No.
It's based off of I think it was at Sundance or a film festival a couple years ago. It's modern day. It's like mockumentary style, sort of like It's Always Sunny, but it's modern day vampires living in modern day Staten Island and trying to get through.
All right. And that's a comedy.
It's quite funny.
Okay. All right. The Wrong Missy. Yeah, that wasn't bad. But that's not like, I'm talking just like earth-shattering comedies. Okay. With Houston, I don't know if Brandon Cooks is going to play. He's got this hip injury. It wouldn't shock me if they just hold him out at this point. I think it's kind of Dameon Pierce or bust here, unless you're looking towards a Nico Collins or a Chris Moore, one of the 18 tight ends they have. Chase Young is back too. I don't know how much he's going to be on the field, but yeah, I think it's Dameon Pierce, and for me, that's it.
Yep. I mean, if you want to play Cooks, if he's active, that's fine. If you want to add Nico Collins to your player pool in large field tournaments, that's fine. 1 point over expected per game. 8 expected fantasy points per game. He's in the playable range, which is better than you can say about a lot of secondary receivers, but this is Dameon Pierce or bust. The Washington defense, again, getting Chase Young back and 3rd best in the NFL against the running back position. Not necessarily a great matchup for rushers, much better for passers. I'm not sure that's going to change me off my Pierce or bust position for the Houston offense.
All right. Well, we got the Rams. We got the New Orleans Saints. It's getting ugly. And it's really, I mean, Matthew Stafford, full participant in practice Wednesday. So he's going to play. There's no reason he wouldn't. But he has no Cooper Kupp, who was garnering almost 1/3 of every target thrown from Matthew Stafford this year. I will have some Higbee. Maybe I'll sprinkle in some Van Jefferson just because you got to throw somewhere. But ultimately, this is a horrible run game. It's the worst run game we've seen in a long time. It's a bad offense right now. They haven't been able to innovate anything, which is shocking with Sean McVay at the helm. It's bad, man. For me, it's basically a little bit of Higbee, maybe a little bit of Van Jefferson. I don't even know if I want to pay $5K for Allen Robinson.
I think this is a no for me. I think this game might be a no.
Okay.
our tools are Team Skoranek. Let's throw it out there. We think that 3,900 for a player who could take over specific route tree options that Cooper Kupp got isn't a bad idea. We have Allen Robinson well below salary-based expectations. We got, Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson outside the top 25 running backs. We got Van Jefferson outside the top 40 wide receivers in median projection. The only player that looks good in the tools to a little, for an actual ceiling performance, a possibility of one, it's Tyler Higbee. We mentioned him a couple times on the show. But New Orleans, for all their defensive struggles, for as bad as they looked against Pittsburgh, they're fifth best in adjusted fantasy points allowed to tight ends. They may actually have that one position.
They are very good against tight ends. Yeah,
it's a little bit fluky, a little bit variable week to week, but I don't know, man. Like, do I really need 10% own Tyler Higbee with this low of a total and this bad of a team and Matthew Stafford less than 100%? I think I might just be all the way out on this one, on this team.
What about Ben Skoranek?
Yeah, I mentioned it. Like our tools think he's fine. 3,900 for a player that is going to take some slot snaps. It's okay. It's not hyper appealing. It's just that the price. What does he need? Like 11 to 13 points, and then he's hit 3x value at 3,900. Okay, I can see a path to that.
Yeah,
that's
and
pretty much it.
You're going to want more than that too. Yeah. New Orleans, what do we do? What are we doing with Alvin Kamara? And by the way, I really thought Dennis Allen, I'd mentioned this the other day, was going to start Winston just with how bad Dalton's been. And then he said, yeah, we're looking into that. It's definitely a possibility. A few hours later, turns out that Dalton remains the starter of this team for week 11.
Kamara or bust. Look, Olave's fine. Not playing Dalton. Landry, fine. I will say this. The Rams have sunk to league average pretty much across the board defensively. And so if Andy Dalton and the Saints team can bring themselves closer to league average themselves on offense, then maybe they have some modicum of success. I think it's Kamara or bust. Kamara's fourth in expected fantasy points over the last 6 weeks, 1.2 fantasy points over expected per game during that stretch. He's 7,600, projection right in line with salary-based expectation. To be honest, Olave, Landry, and Juwan Johnson as a punt play are in my large field player pool, of course, but small field, I'm just taking Kamara and leaving the rest of this game.
Okay. I think you're probably right. I don't really see where else you go here. I don't. And it's not
if someone emerges.
What's that?
If someone emerges, great, but both these teams in flux.
Landry does nothing for me. Olave's not cheap. That's the problem with Olave. You're not getting a big discount on him. He's $6,800.
Look, this much spare yards in terms of unrealized air yards means that this player is probably good, probably open, and a quarterback upgrade will make him very viable in fantasy. He's really tough to trust week to week, even at 6,800, or especially at 68.
Let's wrap it up. Jets and New England. My God. This won't take long to put a bow on it. Well, you've got the Jets, 3.5 point dogs, 38.5 point total. I don't really know what you do here. Maybe sprinkles of Garrett Wilson, or I don't want to go Michael Carter. I don't know. I'm just the way the Jets win right now is just on their defense. That's it.
Absolutely. I mean, look, the Patriots pass offense is 28th best in the NFL, according to Football Outsiders. The Jets pass defense, 6th best. Clear advantage for the Jets. The Jets passing offense themselves, 18th best, according to Football Outsiders. The Patriots, 2nd best against the pass on defense. Clear advantage for the Patriots. So both teams not looking like they're going to be able to pass here. Both teams are sometimes effective as a rushing team, but both defenses are right at league average as well. So I don't know who you really go to. Maybe Ramondre Stevenson. Maybe Garrett Wilson is the one that really sticks out in our tools. At 4,900, we do have a projection well ahead of salary-based expectation. Can't really say that for any Jet. I guess Michael Carter, just inside the top 20 in our projections right now, makes him viable, but just in large field. Honestly, Stevenson, or bust. It may be kind of a similar situation to that last game. Stevenson with 19.5 expected fantasy points over the last 6 weeks. That leads all running backs on the slate. Even in a low total game, if you consolidate production to one player, it's going to look good. Stevenson would be that pick for me.
On the other side, the only question with this is that, I mean, Damian Harris is going to play. Do you think Stevenson at his price gets enough workload to get there?
Yeah. Yes. You can't take away the usage from a guy playing this well right now. I mean, the efficiency has come down a little bit. He's basically right in line with his expectation. But man, 6,700, running back 9. The Stokastic tools currently have Stevenson inside the top 3. It may move a little bit with Harris coming back into the fold as we get to Sunday. This pass game is so bad. Why go away from the only thing that works unless you're trying to, like, I don't know, take down a Millie with the Patriots, which I still think is a losing battle. Jacoby Myers is in my player pool. I will say that.
All right, man, we got through it.
Here it is. And even with all those tangents, we're out of here until quarter till on the East Coast, quarter till 1 on the East Coast.
Not bad.
Yeah,
not
for
bad.
you live
Not
watchers.
even 12:40. Yeah, not bad. Was have you seen Bridesmaids?
I love that movie.
It is so good.
So good.
Yeah.
I have a good story about that one. I was supposed to it was in college when that movie came out, and I was supposed to get tickets to some rom-com. I was supposed to go with my girlfriend, and I got a voucher from the school. I didn't realize the voucher wasn't actual tickets, so I screwed up. I was in the doghouse, and so I'm on my phone trying to order tickets, and I'm like, please let this movie Bridesmaids be good. And so my girlfriend at the time walks in all harumphy, and we had the best time. And no one had a better time but me, because I was out of the doghouse by the end.
Of course. Yeah, that's important. What a good movie, though.
So good.
We watch that all the time still. Whenever it's on, we leave it on. That, Step Brothers, Wedding Crasher, all those movies. It's a good time in comedy, man.
This is happening.
Which one was that?
That's in the middle of the road, Maya Rudolph in the street.
Oh, I thought they were talking about a movie. I thought there was a movie called This Is Happening or something.
Maybe.
But yeah. Oh, yeah. Where she's just firing one off into the manhole. No, but right into the middle of Megan, Melissa McCarthy's character, one of the best characters I've seen in any movie. She's just the best. You feel that heat coming from my undercarriage, slaps her leg up. It's the best. She's truly the best, man.
Don't look at me.
Yeah. Josh Gillum. Yeah, I don't look away. Josh Gillum, all these movies are terrible. What are you talking about, dude? What? They are objectively good movies. If you don't like that, what kind of comedies do you like? You probably like the meta comedies that aren't meant to be funny, but it's like, this is funny because it's not funny. Come on, Josh, I like it, but that's terrible. Those are great movies. Anyway, follow Matt. Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, of course, Slapshot. Follow Matt at Draftaholic, me at Lafayette_D. Whoo, we're in, we're out. Hour 40, actually less than an hour 40. We started at around 12 or 11:05.
True.
Shout out to Tyler Zander. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you back here soon. Peace.
See ya.